welcome everyone. Before we begin our meeting, we will start with invocation provided by Laura Fisher, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, also led by Laura Fisher.
Let's have a moment of silence for Linda Latch. Lord, I thank you for the people here this evening that are coming together to make important decisions for the school district and the children and the teachers. And I just pray that you would give them wisdom, Lord, and understanding to make good decisions. And I just thank you for their willingness to put the work in. And I just pray that you would bless them and their families. I just pray that you would heal our country and just be with your people, Lord. We thank you for all your blessings. In Jesus' name we pray. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'll go ahead and call the regular board meeting to order, and we'll begin with a roll call of members who are present.
Mr. Allen?
Here.
Mr. Christiansen?
Here.
Mr. McClellan is absent. Mr. Melcher?
Here.
Mr. Roth?
Here.
Mr. Warpup?
Here.
Mr. Yarger?
Here. All right, move on to A5. Are there any revisions to the agenda this evening?
No, we have no revisions to the agenda this evening, Mr. Roth.
Okay, we'll go ahead, move on to B1, public hearing on the proposed superintendent contract for 2020 through 2025. If anyone would like to address the board on the proposed superintendent contract, now is the time to do that by coming to the microphone and addressing the board. All right, no one having come forward, we'll move on to item C1, items from visitors. This is an opportunity for public comment, and I don't see that anyone signed up to address the board. If anyone would like to do so, now is your opportunity. All right, no one having come forward, we'll move on to D1, core values discussion.
Yes, tonight I would like to start off with a core value from Flint Springs Elementary. They held their readathon last week and it was a great success. They raised over $12,000 as a school, raised to be spent on students. And this past Friday to celebrate, Mr. Reed cooked hot dogs and students ate outside during their lunch. Students also took an I Spy nature walk during their impact time for hidden items throughout the trail. Why some of their normal activities funded by this money are not possible this year, they have new ideas and creative ways to promote learning and show support for students and staff. Mrs. Dyer stated that we are so thankful for our Flint Springs friends and families, and this is an example of shared leadership.
We also like to share out that Roanoke Elementary also had a readathon kicked off on September the 18th, and students returned their packets September the 25th. During this past week, they were able to encourage a love of reading while students collected donations. They had a different theme for each day that correlated to a specific book that Mrs. Kraft read to students and shared through video. Roanoke PTO members will be counting the money collected, and if the school reaches their goal, which I can tell you as of right now they are still counting and they will have exceeded their goal for Mrs. Kraft sharing that with us tonight. So that's an awesome job. Mr. Getz will be spray painting Mrs. Kraft's hair on Friday. Wow, I'd love to see that. When they meet together as individual grade levels to announce prize winners, Mr. Getz will spray a different color each time to represent each grade level. The readathon day will take place on Friday, October the 2nd, which will involve several reading activities throughout the day. This is the only fundraiser of the year and is used to encourage a love for reading while also collecting donations that go back to the students in school for PTO events, supplies, classroom needs, and more. Again, another example of shared leadership from Mrs. Kraft, students, and families.
I've got a core value. The Huntington North High School boys tennis team won the NE8 conference. They finished the year 17-2. All conference, Carson Kitchen at #1 singles, Noah Zahn and Thomas Schweller at #1 doubles, and honorable mention was Reed Eckert and Matthew Wheel at #2 doubles. Also, we have another core value. We'd like to thank the elementary counselors, Mrs. Altwanowski, Mrs. Royst, Mrs. Metzger, Mr. Getz, Mrs. Harner, and Mrs. Hinesley for stepping up in a time of need and crisis over at Lincoln with the sudden passing of Mrs. Latch. Also, Mr. McClure, Mr. Reed, and Mrs. Yarger did a great job of helping out the elementary teachers and students during this time, so we can't thank them enough, and this is an example of shared leadership. Also want to take this time to let people know that there will be, our thoughts and prayers will go out to Mrs. Latch's husband, John, and their 3 sons, Logan and Ben and Isaiah. There will be an outdoor celebration of life on Friday, October 2nd, from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Evangelical United Methodist Church, and also on Saturday, October 3rd, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. to recognize Mrs. Latch.
All right, are there any other core values discussions tonight? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to E1, special presentation by Transportation.
Yes, this evening we have Mrs. Fields here, and she is accompanied by Mr. Hotchkiss, who was with the Indiana State Police, and they did a great job of doing a presentation at Rotary on our stop arm cameras. And so this evening they're going to talk about the stop arm cameras and how they're trying to keep our students safe, and with some other facts. So we really appreciate Mr. Hotchkiss and Mrs. Fields from coming out this evening.
Okay, so this is the presentation that we did for Rotary and Optimus, and it's just kind of who we are. With Huntington County, sometimes we forget how big we are compared to others. So we are 388 square miles is what we cover. We are one of 21 counties out of 92 that only have one school corporation in them. We have 72 yellow buses, 6 white buses, 3 team transit buses, and then we run 62 regular bus routes each day and 5 special needs bus routes each day. So this is kind of who we transport. So when I did this presentation here, we had 5,029 students who were eligible for transportation. That doesn't mean that's our enrollment number. That just means we could have people outside the county who come in that technically wouldn't be eligible for transportation unless they were in the county. We had 3,381 students who were utilizing the school bus at the time, and that has grown. We're continuing to see our kids come back to us, so it's been a really good thing, but that's where we were at that time. We provide transportation for identified preschoolers, Huntington Catholic students. When we did this, I think it's been 2 weeks, we had 42 shuttles today. Then we're at 48 now, so that's constantly changing. And then positives from COVID. Very seldom do you find positives when you talk about COVID, so I did want to kind of mention those things. When we implemented the 1 pickup location Monday through Friday for AM and 1 pickup location Monday through Friday for PM, we've had 0 lost students, 0 students put on the wrong bus. I think if you were to talk to any of your secretaries and your teachers, they will tell you what a burden we took off their plate to not have 70 to 80 bus change notes a day. You know, those go to the office, then they go to the teacher, and then the teacher has to try to get them to where they go. The drivers have been able to build relationships with students because they're seeing the same kiddos day in and day out. So they get into a very good routine. And the best piece of that was we were on time the first day of school. So we made it from middle school to high school to elementaries on time. We've never done that. So I would say that was a big plus. I pulled some information about our rankings as far as our land area and our population. So we are the 4th largest county out of those 21 to only have 1 school corporation. And we are 5th by population. So when you take those kind of things into account, that, you know, even though sometimes we feel like we're small town Huntington, we're really big compared to other corporations who are dealing with the same thing we are, of having one school corporation. We're the 4th largest. By enrollment, we're still 5th largest. So by the number of students that are enrolled in our school versus the other schools that compare in that 21, we're still the 5th largest. So even though we talk about declining enrollment, everyone's we're kind of staying on the same trend. And then, Cindy, you can skip that one. And then we'll talk about the stop arm cameras. So that's really kind of the big key. So on October 30th of 2018, when the 3 students who were killed while crossing the road to get aboard their bus, that shook the transportation departments around. That was the year we redistricted, so the biggest redistricting in Huntington since consolidation. We got new routing software that year, and then this happened. And I will tell you, we had kiddos crossing the streets, crossing highways, because everything was about time. How quickly could you get it done? And when that happened, I feel like not just our county, but every other county kind of really took a deep breath and said, this can't happen. So we worked, and within 2 days, we had eliminated that. It takes a little bit of extra time, but it's definitely worth it. In Huntington County, we have 11 highways to contend with. And you know, most of the time you don't think about that number, but when you're talking about 11 highways of being door side, and how many more miles and extra time and things that takes, it adds up. So Jamie Hotchkiss got put on the spot. I always give his disclaimer here. Mr. Altman's class had some students that after we had, I think we had 4 high schoolers run bus arms. When we decided to do stop arm cameras, that wasn't the highest thing on our priority list, but after 2018, it rose to my list of what I felt like we really needed to invest our resources in. So after lots of selling back equipment we had and kind of wheeling and dealing, we pushed out 17 buses on the road with stop arm cameras. So Jamie had 4 high schoolers. So Mr. Altman's class decided they would make an announcement that went out to all the high school students and just kind of telling the story. But they didn't tell Jamie that prior to. They did not prep him, so.
It was supposed to be an interview,
Yeah.
not a commentary, so.
Yes, so I always give his disclaimer, but can you get the video to play?
On that slide?
Does it not on yours? So it does on mine.
That's a shame.
Oh no, you really need to see it.
There's an embedded link you can click on.
She just sent it out to everybody.
Yeah, I can send it to you.
Just put it on YouTube.
Yeah.
There you go.
There we go. You can see a link. And sound.
And to let you know that I don't want your lives to be ruined by something you unintentionally
Here we
did.
go.
So-
Today we interviewed Officer Hotchkiss regarding some issues we've been seeing in Huntington County about the stop arm violations. So this is what he has to say.
Hey Vikings, Jamie Hotchkiss here with the State Police, Indiana State Police, and we're here to talk to you just a little bit about stop arm violations with school buses. It's a growing problem, been a problem for years. If you guys were paying attention to the news last year, you probably heard of a bad accident that happened fairly locally. A lady killed a couple kids by going past the school bus that were crossing the street. I'm here just to kind of give you some information about that and to let you know that I don't want your lives to be ruined by something you unintentionally did. So here's the deal with school buses. School buses have yellow amber lights flashing on top when they're getting ready to stop. And so those lights act as if it's a yellow light at a stoplight. It means it's getting ready to stop and the red lights are about ready to come on. So if you are approaching from either direction on a school bus, whether it's from behind a school bus or coming towards a school bus, and those red lights come on and that stop arm comes out, that means you need to stop. Kids may be crossing the street, kids may not be crossing the street, but you do not know that. The ticket, just heads up, the ticket is a big ticket. It's a $250 fine plus court costs, and you also have 8 points put on your license. So for those of you who are young drivers, could very well have your license suspended, and you don't want that either. But really the most important thing is going back to the lady that killed the 2 young kids. She didn't intend to hurt anybody that day, but she just was not paying attention. And she ran past the stop arm, and the kids were in the middle of the road. So it was tragic. I don't want to see that to happen to anyone here locally, both the little ones or a driver, because a driver then has to deal with that the rest of your life. Imagine being a 16 or 17-year-old driver and having that happen to you, and then you have to deal with that for the remainder of your life. So when you're behind the wheel, first of all, first and foremost is get off your cell phone. It's against the law, for one, and it's very distracting. Car stereos, pets, other people in the vehicle, they can all be distracting. So just be very careful when you're around those school buses. School buses are big and yellow and have lights for a reason. So I'd like for you all to pay attention to those school buses and hopefully not get yourself in that kind of situation.
He did a great job because they really, they talked to him, and then the next day I got an email that said, hey, 2 kids are coming out to video, so we're like, oh, let's get a bus, and they put it together pretty quick. But the next slide shows kind of what our cameras look like. So we did some research before we purchased these to make sure that we got what we needed. I met with the prosecutor to make sure that we had everything she needed to make her job easy. And what's unique about Huntington is we have 3 cameras. So we have one that faces forward, one that faces back, and Cindy, that's a video, if you can get that one. So in the video that you saw of Jamie, all of those stop arms, those are in our county. So those videos are ours. Those have happened. And so the pictures are very clear. So I wanted you guys to be able to see how clear they are. Even in the dark, we had one this morning that it was pitch dark. And I thought, oh man, we're not gonna get this. And you see it, it's black, 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 and there's the plate. I mean, it's just, it lights it up. So.
And we know where she lives and where she works, so we'll find her. That video actually was one that was played during the video as well. The car goes by, and then the student crosses directly thereafter. So if you can't get it to play, that's why.
It says I need access. It's not
Here,
here.
you want to sit and I'll.
We have access.
I want you to see this video only because this happened in a not busy time, in a not busy area.
This is First Street and Woodlawn, for those of you familiar with Huntington. I think it's Woodlawn.
Did you get it?
Driver this week is 19 years old.
Our kids were already off that bus.
So how long was the stop arm out
Good
before the...
4, 5, 6 seconds, I would say, on that one.
Yeah, so our kids were already off the bus, and had the driver not had a relationship with those kids to know to watch her, they'd have been in the middle of that road.
Wow.
So it just shows how critical, you know, just being able to pay attention. And I feel like we're bringing awareness. The whole game is not to ticket everybody. That's not what we're after. Sometimes Jamie will meet with folks, and it's very much a learning. Sometimes drivers come in, and I'm like, oh no, you should have waited. So it's a learning game on both ends, and I feel like it's made us better I feel like drivers, it's made them better, because they're more aware now of making sure it looks like, if a car looks like it's not stopping, don't throw your arm out. Just wait. I'd rather you be late than try to trap somebody. So, can you go to the next slide? So our average bus stop takes anywhere from 15 to 30 seconds. We have the 17 stop arm cameras. When we did this, we had 33, we're to 38 today, since August 5th. Our first day at Kinder Camp, we had a stop arm violation.
Yeah, I think that, I thought it was a mistake when you first sent it.
Yeah.
I went to school yet.
Yeah.
It's gotta be a test.
Yeah, it is. So last year, we were only able to get the plate number for 19. And even though, you know, we had a shortened year, that meant drivers had to try to catch the plate number the year before. So I thought, I'll just go back another year and just see how we compared for a full year. We had 21. And we're at 38 today with our cameras. The last slide just kind of, it shows when to stop for a school bus. We have a lot of issue on 24. So I think we've had, I don't know, 7 or 8 violations this year so far on US 24 of people passing us in the passing lane. Usually 2-3 cars at a time. Lafayette Center Road, because there's no barrier, so all lanes have to stop.
That's a tough one. I'm kind of here if you have any questions, but I will say that the cameras are wonderful. Jay County got some a year ago, and they were sending them to me, and I said, well, you're gonna have to find something else because Huntington's keeping me too busy. But it's been about one a day, I'd say, almost on average, how many days we've been in school. So some days it's 2, some days it's 3. Sometimes we can locate the drivers. Most of the time we have so far, but there's an occasion where you have a rental vehicle or an out-of-state vehicle or something that's gonna be awful tough. I'm not gonna probably travel state lines to write an infraction ticket, but yeah, it's been good. And as she said, it's good for public education as well as driver education, because drivers, police officers, teachers, we all can stand to get better all the time. So if we have learning moments on all sides, then it's good. I would say right now, without looking at the spreadsheets she has created, I'd say we're about half tickets and half warnings. So, and it's 8 points on your license. So it's like getting a DUI, as far as that goes. And I hesitate to write a high school student for it, but it'll be a mistake they never make again, I hope. So, what else? It's the 3rd time I do this, so I get caught up figure it. Is there questions about the enforcement of it, or I'll say 17 cameras is plenty, but I think all
It's
buses
not.
should have them.
It's not. Every time, but we've had 3 or 4 that have come in with plate numbers, and I think we've gotten 1.
Yeah, it's hard for a driver. If you think about being a school bus driver, you got, whether it's 30 kids or 40 kids on a school bus, and maybe an aide if you're special needs, to not only pay attention to the cars on the road, the people getting off the bus or getting on the bus, let alone trying to turn around and see a plate and to memorize that plate and write it down or call it on radio. So it's very hard to do that, and it's awful hard to prosecute when it turns into a he said, she said kind of thing. And well, your arm went out all the way, and then the driver says, no, my arm was out for 2 or 3 seconds. It is a violation that can be prosecuted on those kind of statements, but these make the prosecution really easy. And I think it'll make court appearances probably go down, because when I speak to these people, some people say, I know what I did, I'm wrong right away. And other people say, well, there's no way their stop arm was out yet. And so then it's just a quick trip out to my police patrol vehicle and turn on the video and show them. So it's been good. A lot of conversations with a lot of people. I think I told Optimus, I've had conversations with drug dealers. I've had conversations with business people, students. It's been pretty good. There's a lot of good things happening in this community. So all the negativity that you guys experience sometimes, there's still good things. Still good things going on. So any questions on how we enforce it or how?
I've just got one question and then a comment as well. So I know the answer to this, but I want to get from you, Mr. Hotchkiss. buses are not allowed to stop in oncoming traffic to let kids off to block traffic both ways, correct? They're not.
You mean as far as going left to the center line?
Yes.
Correct. As far as the county road, I want to
Yeah,
clarify
yeah.
this because there is a lot of debate on this throughout
Mhm.
the state, especially after the kids were killed. There were some school systems that were coaching or
Encouraging.
promoting buses parked at an angle to block the roadway. Well, first of all, that's illegal. Secondly, the civil litigation there will be entirely on the school. I know it will be anyway. People are gonna sue the school system for whatever they can. But if they cannot see that stop arm because the bus is sitting at an angle, at what point do they have a reason to stop? So, but as far as county road goes, they have no center line. There are gonna be times they're gonna be over the center line because the law says as far right as practical. And for a student to be dropped off on a county road that, as many of you know, if you live in the county roads don't just have a sidewalk. They're usually a ditch or a drop off or a drainage culvert or something like that. You know, they can't get off the bus and they take 8-foot fall. So they have to give them some reasonable movement to get off the bus. So yes, buses are technically probably over the center line on some county roads, but not promoted.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to clear, just directly from you, because that's been brought
there were some
up.
schools that said, the state police can pack sand, we're gonna block the road, and
Yeah.
that's not a good idea as far as civil litigation's gonna be down the road.
Yeah, I agree, and I know that some looked at extended stop arms that would, again, cross over and stop
And
traffic.
they talked about that, school bus committee, as well as the Department of Education has talked about that, but nothing has been approved.
Okay.
I think you're walking a pretty thin line there, putting something out in front of a moving car.
Yeah, I agree, and I just wanted to get that
Nope.
clear answer, and then the other thing, just from my perspective, I know that we have 17, and I think, I speak for myself, I would support more, if we're able to budget for that and find that in the future. I absolutely would support that. So I am very grateful for the 17 we have, and obviously, it was a great decision to make that a priority because we see the results. So I hope that people just realize Huntington County, you don't mess with it, you see the bus with any lights on, you're stopping.
And I told her at the beginning when I kept getting email after email after email after email, there was one day it would go by and I wouldn't get an email, and I asked her if she was at work or feeling okay.
Yeah, you text me right.
Because it was every day, and so I've recruited, I guess for lack of better terms, 3 city officers to help me with these, because when I get into a busy season, I'm not in the county. I have 7 counties of school buses I'm in charge of. So for me to be able to handle all of them, right now is a good time, but here in another few weeks when I start to get busy again, it's gonna be harder. So I do have 3 city officers willing to do it. In fact, Scott Winter, I think, is handling one from this evening for me, if he can track her down at home, so.
The city guys have been great. We also, I've got a spreadsheet going, so we know the location of each one of these and whether we cite them or they're warning and kind of time of day, just so we can look for trends. We know we have areas, Crescent and LaFountain, it's almost every day. That's an area that I sent to our state transportation director and I said, here's where my kids are, you tell me where to put the stop. And we put the stop where he said. It's either we stop on West Park, and then you have kids crossing LaFountain. There's no good place right there, but we just have several students there. So we make a stop, so these kids are door side, we turn onto Crescent, and then these students that live in the house there, they cross right there, because Crescent's not a busy road, where LaFountain is. So if we had students crossing LaFountain, then we're putting them at risk, because we have someone running almost daily. But we know North Jefferson, who would have thought North Jefferson would be an issue? But we've had like 5 or 6 there. So we're trying to look for trends and, making sure that we're putting stops where they should be.
I think the word will travel some, especially in high school. I think the word's probably out that, especially if they see me at high school lunch, I think they're probably looking for a stop arm violation. Or I'm just there to visit little Ben Whitman, your SRO. I call him little because he's by himself. No, it's been good. I will say that it's a good thing and it's a bad thing to have your school bus inspector live in your community. Because I not only get to help with this kind of stuff, which I don't get to do for every county, but I also get to see all the buses every day, and I'm always texting Tracy, okay, Tracy, this school bus got a stop arm or a light bulb out or something, trying to take care of that, that kind of stuff, just to harass him, so keep them on their toes, so.
And the city guys have been up with our crossing guards. They've sat at Crescent LaFountain, they'll
Yeah.
sit at Jefferson. So, and
They're
they've.
just sitting at the high school in the mornings as well.
Yeah, Jamie's been up there. At one point, I think we had like 3 or 4 in that little stretch. And everybody's like, what is going on? Like, don't go past the crossing guard, don't go past the bus, you're good. So. Okay.
Officer Hotchkiss, thanks a lot for partnering with us, and Vanessa, thank you for keeping our students safe and being proactive with this. This has been something very needed to keep our students safe. And again, Jamie, thank you for all your help and support and hours you've spent with Vanessa in helping us keep our buses safe and our students safe. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. All right, we'll move on to F1, student improvement plans.
This is traditionally our second read of the school improvement plans that principals have submitted to us, and so they are due to the state October the 2nd. And so what we are going to do, starting in November at our board meetings, we're going to be inviting our principals to come and share out their school improvement goals, so you can hear and listen, ask questions, share about what they're doing, things that they're doing, things that they put in place to reach those goals. So we're excited to bring those to you, and that would be a great way to find out what's happening and ask questions. And that will start in November, and we'll have 2 probably at each meeting till we go through the round of principals. And I'm excited for the opportunity for them to come and share what they're doing, the work that they're doing. But the plans will have to be submitted to the state by the principals October the 2nd.
Thank you, Mr. Peters.
Would anyone like to make a recommendation or make a motion regarding the recommendation to approve the school improvement plans?
I'll make a motion that we approve the school improvement plans.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments before we vote? All right, hearing none, we'll vote on the motion to approve. All right, motion passes 6-0. So we'll move on to items G1 through 10, the consent agenda.
Yes, I have in front of the board 10 items for your approval. We'll start with G1, the regular meeting minutes from September 14th, 2020. G2, professional leave requests. We have several professional leave requests, and these are all virtual. I have a classified employee resignation, Mrs. Monica Sliger. She will be resigning from food service as a food service manager at Sound Money. Monica has worked in our district for 19 years and 14 years in our food service, and we thank her for her service. G4, new certified employee, and that is Mallory Charte, which is our new SLP for special services. New classified employees, Mr. Eric Andrews. He will be our new public relations coordinator. Will be replacing Mrs. Bridget Burkhart. Hannah Britton, paraprofessional at Riverview. Tara Martinez, paraprofessional at Riverview. And Nathan Shaw, paraprofessional at Crestview. We have a new security officer that will be put into play. He will be actually coming in and helping out in lunch duty. It's Mr. Evan Rhodes at Huntington North High School. G7, increase of hours of a classified employee, Mrs. Erin Wilkinson, a paraprofessional at Roanoke. Her hours will be added to her so she can help out in some of our classrooms. Classified employee retirement, Viva Howe, food service manager. G9, request to accept donations. We have several here. Lincoln Elementary is requesting permission to accept a donation from DonorsChoose.org awarded to Mrs. Ashley Bunchick in the amount of $438 for the purchase of classroom seat pouches for her students. Our second donation is HCCSC is requesting permission to accept a donation of office supplies from UTEC valued at approximately $300 to be shared throughout the district. Mrs. Gray was kind enough to get these and actually inventory these. There's a number of binders, calculators, and other office materials that we'll put out there for any of our buildings to use. Third donation is from Horace Mann Elementary, is requesting permission to accept a donation from Shuttleworth in the amount of $200 to be supported the Horace Mann robotics team. And E10, accounts payable and payroll voucher registers. So asking for approval of a consent agenda from the board.
Thank you. Would anyone like to make a motion regarding the consent agenda?
Motion. Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Would anyone like to pull a specific line item out before we vote? Okay, are there any questions or comments before we vote? Okay, hearing none, we'll vote on the motion to approve the consent agenda. Okay, motion passes 6-0. Move on to H1 Finance, and at this time, I will go ahead and suspend our regular meeting and open the 2021 budget hearing.
Yeah, at this time, Mr. Roth, on the September 14th meeting, I presented the 2021 budget to the board and to the community. We have properly advertised that budget hearing tonight. And at this time, we'd like to open up the floor to any of the community members that would like to speak during this hearing on the 2021 budget.
All right, would anyone like to address us regarding the budget? All right, Mr. Baumgartner, doesn't look like anyone's coming forward, so.
I would ask Mr. Roth that you close the 2021 budget hearing.
All right, I'll go ahead and adjourn the 2021 budget hearing, and I'll reopen the regular board meeting. And we'll move on to H3, financial reports.
Yeah, as you can see, we are just wrapped up August and have a very positive cash balance, as well as our expenses and revenues have begun to work themselves out from the April, March months in which we were more concerned with our revenues. So we've had a pretty good year all in all, and expect to finish strong here in the next couple months to wrap up the 2020 school year. We however do have concerns about 21 and 22 and the state revenues that they're predicting, but at this time we are in a good position to weather whatever storm may come. And just to give you a little update also on our ADM count, that was last week, right at 4911, 4912. We are still working through a couple kids, but as far as numbers, it looks like we're down maybe 50 to 60 kids, less than that from where we ended in February, but sure not the damage that we were fearful of. So pretty good numbers for all that's going on. And just this is not the time as far as facilities, but to also update you on my on our facilities. The roof project have wrapped up, and those have completed. So we are now starting in the heating and cooling project at the high school. So those projects are active currently. Roanoke is really making progress as far as the house coming down, as far as the lot, those type of things. So we do have some soil issues as far as the parking lot, but other than that, really turning out nice.
I heard a comment from a staff member up at the high school. This was the first time that one of the classrooms had not leaked in some time when we had recent rain. So that's good news about the roof over there, that we're not letting water in right now, it sounds like.
Yeah, it sounds like we have gained access back to those classrooms that we lost due to the issues of water, and we've gained those classrooms back, so.
All right, thank you, Mr. Baumgartner. We'll move on to item H4, HCCSC HTA Virtual Compensation MOU.
Yes, you will find in front of you, there is a memorandum of understanding for virtual compensation. And we met with HCTA several times in July, coming up with a solution on how to pay virtual teachers. Obviously, we're trying to run two platforms, a virtual school and also a brick and mortar school. In order to do that, we had to have a number of teachers that would have to be freed up. We had to free up 12 elementary teachers to be able to address the needs virtually for the elementary. So we went from almost 200 students, and then over 2 weeks we went to 800 students right before school to do the virtual option. So our budget first started out, and we're using CARES Act dollars to fund majority of this. We received $644,000 from the CARES Act. We had budgeted originally $100,000 to pay for virtual teachers. However, with the number of students that were wanting a virtual option, that kind of magnified. And so we met a couple times in July with HCTA, and then after school started, we met with HCTA and several other times to come up with 4 categories. Instead of going with Zoom, we went with WebEx. That was able to save us $42,000 that we had budgeted in the CARES Act dollars. And then we had another round, which for remediation, which we were able to, for $35,000, and we're able to use that. So of that, it's a $208,000 memorandum. Of that, $177,000 will be paid out of the CARES Act dollars. So this will then fund over 104 teachers, and we have 4 categories. One category is to pay our elementary teachers 8 additional days. Those teachers' duties were staying after school for 6 days to do benchmarking at the beginning of the year. They also will be in the spring have to test those students if we do have to test, if they do any standardized testing in the spring. So that's category 1. Category 2 is middle school and high school teaching during their regular scheduled days. So if I have to teach 6 out of 7 classes, of those 6, I do have to teach a virtual, so I'm going back and forth. So they will be paid a $1,000 stipend there, $500 before fall break, $500 before spring break. Then going to category 3, these are teachers that are teaching during their prep. So they have 6 periods they're teaching, and the 7th period will be their prep time to prepare for their classes. They will be teaching during that time. So we have 6 teachers in that category. And then category 4 would be our Apex teachers and elementary related arts. Those teachers will be paid half their daily rate or hourly rate for their compensation. And I'm sorry I didn't say it, category 3, those people that are teaching during their prep and preparing lessons and grading papers for that will be paid their hourly rate. So this comes out to almost $208,000, as I said, $177,000 coming from the CARES Act, and then the $31,000 will be coming from the general fund. So if there are any questions that I could entertain for the board for this MOU.
The only question I have is, what if in 2 months we need to go all virtual? I didn't see anything in here that addresses that situation.
Yeah, what'll happen is people will be paid for right before fall break for the first semester. The second semester will be paid for right before spring break. So if we go virtual The first semester, they get paid right before October break. The second semester, they'll be paid right before spring break. So if we go virtual, they will not get the second half of that stipend.
So these stipends will not be
Not paid out.
applicable if we're 100% virtual.
Correct.
Due to the pandemic.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's why we decided to pay those out in 2 different areas, because if we did go virtual the whole time, that way we wouldn't be responsible for that second half of payment.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, would anyone like to make a motion regarding the proposed MOU?
I'll make a motion that we approve the MOU with HCTA.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any additional questions or comments before we vote? All right, hearing none, we'll vote on the motion to approve. All right, motion passes 6-0. Move on to item I-1, MOU with Impact Institute.
Yes, this is a memorandum of understanding with the Impact Institute. Basically, this is, we have to provide a classroom for all adult education instruction at the Learning Center. This is the same type of MOU that we've done in the past with the Impact Institute, so I'm asking for board approval.
All right, would anyone like to make a motion regarding this MOU?
I'll make a motion that we approve the MOU with the Impact Institute.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All right, hearing none, we'll vote on the motion to approve. Motion passes 6-0. Move on to J1, Andrews Dallas Township Public Library Trustee.
Yes, we've received a letter from Steve Williams, the Andrews Library Board of Trustees, President, and Nancy Disbro, Library Director of Andrews, and they would like to recommend Mr. Daniel Bixler as the appointee for the Library Board. Daniel has worked in Dallas Township for over 25 years, and we'd like to nominate and recommend Mr. Bixler as the trustee for the Andrews.
Okay, would anyone like to make a motion regarding this recommendation?
Motion to approve Daniel Bixler to the Dallas Township Public Library Board.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I just thank Mr. Bickler for his desire to serve. I know when I've gone in with my children, often we'll see him there, so great patron there, and will serve well, I think.
All right, hearing nothing further, we'll vote on the motion to approve. Motion passes 6-0. Move on to K1, items of discussion by board members.
I guess I have one question that I get asked, and I don't know the answer, and it's probably to Jay. The virtual students, where were we on day one? Where are we today? We're trickling back in slowly.
Yes. I can tell you, we meet with principals tomorrow, and I can tell you that from the very get-go, when we started this virtual option, we tried to be very patient, very understanding. We heard what our public was saying, that they wanted this option. We shared with you at a board meeting that in order for this to work, it takes engagement from the parent and engagement from the student. And I can tell you 3 weeks ago that we sent out 150 school messenger letters to students that are not engaged with us across the district, 150 out of 864 students. I can tell you that I have drafted a letter. I want to run it by our principals and share at our principals meeting tomorrow that we look at those students that are not doing anything and that letter would go out to those families requesting that they come back on campus. We did say early on in the FAQ that we sent out that if a student was struggling and not doing well in that virtual option, that we would contact them. And I can tell you our principals have done an awesome job of emailing, texting, home visits, trying to engage our students. And in that FAQ that we sent out said that we'd give you one opportunity, but if you're not doing anything and your grades are slipping, then we would request that you come back on campus. I can tell you there's an elementary student right now out there that has got 45 missing assignments, and tried to reach out to those parents today to talk with them, a fourth grader in our district. So there comes a point where we have to say, it's time for your kids to come back. It's to come back on campus and work with us to make that happen. Because right now, and that's concerning. It's concerning as a community, as a district, that students are not engaged with us, and we're doing everything in our power to try to make that happen for them. So that's the current state of the state. If that answers your question, Mr. Warpup, that it's concerning to me. I really, concerned enough that we've got to do something now, sooner rather than later, to try to get them back on campus and try to survive this first semester, or recoup a little bit of this first semester, because I'm afraid of how far they're going to be behind if we don't try to do something. So it's urgent. Just to say it like it is, it's an urgent call for them to engage with us. So did that help? Did that answer?
Thanks, Jay.
Do you have a feel for how many of those students that are in that list of 125, 150, like, is it mostly elementary, or is it spread across the board?
It's spread across the board. It is a mixture, and I can tell you there are some connectivity issues that we've had with some of our parents that have 4 children at home that are trying to connect virtually with us, and they're having issues with their internet access, so that is an issue, and we understand that. And those that are engaged, I will tell you, those virtual students that are with us and working with us, they can continue to be a virtual student. We're just looking at those ones that are not engaging, have not done anything to this point, that we've got to bring back on campus and try to survive, try to recoup a little bit this semester if we can. So.
And then, and going back, kind of piggyback what Jay was saying, the other thing we're looking at too, now that we're having a lot of other students starting to come back, we're looking at taking some of those students or some of those teachers that are under the virtual option, now bringing them back into in-person instruction because of our numbers. And so that's the next thing, or next step that we'll be doing, and looking at those and working with our principals on those numbers. So, because those numbers obviously are going down because we're having a number of students starting to come back in person as they see it's going very well. As Jay said, our principals have done an outstanding job of making home visits to those students that have not been engaged. One thing the state is going to do, if you have a significant number or percentage of students that are going through virtual, they're going to audit those districts. And number one, they're going to look and see the rigor of your lessons, which Jay has done a phenomenal job of making sure the rigor is there in this option, and also the engagement by those students. And so, as Jay said earlier, the engagement piece is the one that we're really worried about for those students that aren't doing anything. So, again, kudos to Mr. Peters and what he's been able to do with the professional development team and making sure people are following that FAQ and what we said we were going to do, and he's done a great job of that. So, thank you, Mr. Peters.
Anyone else? All right, move on to L1, adjournment. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.